This is strange. That single thought has graced my mind a countless number of times since my life here began. It feels like an easy way to discard a troubling question, as if simply labeling something with those three words will make it go away, or at least not worth thinking about any further. My life before my heart attack feels more blurry every time I try to remember it, and my mind struggles to keep up with all the events suddenly happening around me since. I heard somewhere that this is what it feels like to be left stranded in a country with only the most basic understanding of the local language. Indeed, when I think about it, that seems a marvelously apt analogy for what's happened to me. But such situations are also supposed to make you feel very capable in that language very fast, as you're forced to learn it in order to survive. Put another way, the situation becomes sink or swim. I wonder if I've really managed to swim after all this time. The exams are stressing me out a lot, even though they're finally coming to an end, and I have remained in Muto's favor. I have some sort of direction for my future now, but I keep using that stupid, meaningless phrase. This is strange. It really is amazing how fast one comes to accept being surrounded by people with sometimes incredibly jarring disabilities and conditions. So much so that I really wonder why I feel so much like a foreigner. It certainly isn't for a lack of socialization or friends. I've come to know most of my classmates on a first-name terms, and know a few others around the school. Whether they're missing an arm or a leg, the students here are just like anyone else out of their age. I can navigate the halls that I once lost myself in with ease, and I'd not expect to ever have, thanks to the school's logical layout, and can manage my teachers in comfortable discussion. I really love this picture. It's just so real. I swirl around gently the tea in my cup and reflected image in my face becoming distorted by the moving liquid. This is strange. I used to hate drinking tea. Maybe I'm thinking too much. The familiar sound of china rattling from a teacup, touching an accompanying saucer, rings out. Is something the matter? Don't worry, it's nothing. Stop saying that. She hates that, dude. She hates you saying it's nothing. She wants you to be open and honest and tell her what's wrong. She genuinely hates you saying that it's nothing. I take a long sip of tea in front of me as the girls do. Just weird, whiling away the time in Lily's room sipping tea with her and Hanako. Feels familiar, almost nostalgic. So how's your work in the newspaper club going, Hanako? I want to know too. It sounds like it would be quite interesting. Hanako's face turns down at the attention placed upon her, though her smile belies the fact that she genuinely likes being the center of interest for the two of us. It's good. I think I'm getting better at it. Naomi and a couple of her friends handle most of the jobs, getting stories and stuff. I just do the computer things, like putting the stories together and getting it printed. It's nice, since I could sit and concentrate. I see Lily's low-tech nature isn't shared by Hanako. While sitting in a room compiling other people's newspaper articles into documents doesn't strike me as overly outgoing, it is heartening to see her widening her circle of friends. Baby steps, I guess. It's probably a bit much to be expecting her to become a socialite like Lily. How are you finding Naomi? I've heard she can be quite troublesome at times. And Lily's going to her mothering mode over Hanako. Letting go of her is something she has to learn. Hanako scratches her cheek, thinking of an answer. Naomi's nice. She's a bit loud sometimes and a bit tiring, but she's really helpful. Her and her friends are nice too. That's wonderful to hear, Hanako. I'm glad you found a source of such enjoyment. Lily's smile is warm and genuine, but I can sense a touch of wistfulness to it as well. Hanako seems to miss that entirely, but I don't think for a second that I'm imagining it. I suppose it's because I've slowly come to pay more attention to everything that's going on around me, with things seemingly happening faster and faster. It feels like something I'll miss if I'm not as observant as possible. With the exams, my newfound love life, trying to fit in some studying regarding my options for college and university, and my heart condition applying to the brakes on everything at irrationally random times, my brain's been over it in overdrive recently. It makes me appreciate the rare quiet times such as these. I guess this is why Lily came to appreciate her weekly walks to the convenience store and her tea parties with Hanako. Despite her like of being surrounded by others, they give her a moment of peace in a chaotic and busy life. Thank God the exams are over, huh? The comment draws an earnest chuckle from both of the girls. It seems like everybody's been a lot happier since the exams ended last week. So, what are you doing for summer and holidays, Hanako? I quickly count the days in my head. Today's Monday and school finishes on Saturday. 5 days ago. To go, after all. I was thinking of traveling just around a bit. There's a lot of places I want to see, and I think I have enough money to pay for the bus and train rides. Naomi and one of the other girls in the newspaper club said they might come along too. Her look indicates she's given the matter quite a lot of thought. I'm kind of surprised that she's contemplating something like this. It seems she's really become intent on striking out on her own. Is there anywhere in particular you're thinking of going? I was thinking that Kyoto sounds nice. I think I'll try to go to a few places, though. Lily nods in approval, happy with Hanako's plans. While I cast my eyes to Lily, I refrain from asking her the same question. She's been evasive with her plans for the future for a long time now, but I never seem to get a good time to broach the subject alone with her. Every time it comes up in conversation, it feels like she's either unsure of herself or simply dodging the question. It's troubling. Be sure to call sometime when you're out and about. I gave you my number before, right? Hanako gives a quick nod and a happy smile on her face. It's strange to see how happy people seem to become when they have a goal to work towards. Yuko seems to brighten whenever her university aspirations are brought up, and now Hanako is just the same. So why do I still feel uncertainty? And why Lily too? Relationships can be irritatingly troublesome sometimes. What time is it? Huh? Takes me a good second to remember that Lily's clock doesn't have any visual feedback. I really should know, given how many times I've been in her room. Nevertheless, I take my watch from my bag and quickly check it, the reason for her asking becoming clear. It's about 20 past 10, nearly curfew. Hanako rises to her feet, dusting herself off and neatening her gown after doing so. I'd better be going then. Good night, Lily. Peace out. Sleep well, Hanako. See you tomorrow. With that, she walks to the door and quietly makes her exit. Silence. This seems to be happening more and more between Lily and me. Recently, after a few seconds, I finally find something to talk about. Oh yeah, I talked to Muto on Friday, and he finally checked out some guides on college and how to apply for it. That's good news. If you're going to be applying for colleges, I assume you have some idea in mind about what you're going to do in the future. I think I've settled on becoming a science teacher. It's going to take a while to get through university and everything to be qualified, but I think it'll be worth it. Lily's face brightens considerably at the news. I suppose with her wish to become a teacher, she's delighted I'd take the same kind of path. So you've decided on a career of teaching. I think that path suits you most excellently, Hiso. I smile and nod. This time, even if I know she can't see me doing so, I know she feels it. I imagine Muto might have taken to the news well. That's one word for it. Hey, Lily. Yes? I know you want to be a teacher, but for a second I wonder whether I should really ask her the question on my mind, or, that's quickly brushed aside by the fact that this is rather late to have second thoughts. Surely you don't think I'd be offended by something regardless of my blindness? Her accusing tone is betrayed by her grinning face, amused by my awkwardness in raising the topic. Some things never change. Good point, I guess. I was just thinking whether or not being blind would be a hindrance, what with your ambitions to become a teacher and all. She looks mindfully surprised before giving the question some thought. I refuse to think she's never actually pondered the issue before. I wonder. So, could you close your eyes for a moment? Okay. Raising an eyebrow, I do as she requests. I have no idea what she has in mind, and my questions only increase as I peek out from one eye. Taking the black ribbon she usually wears in her hair from the cabinet beside her bed, she advances toward me while running it through her fingers to remove any stray hairs before remaining on the piece of cloth. I suddenly click onto her intentions as I feel the black strip make contact with my face, wrapping around my head and over my eyes. What exactly is this for? It's a little test, Hisao. Since you seem to be wondering, I'll let you see things as I do for this time. So that's what this is about. What else would it be about, bro? To be honest, this actually sounds kind of fun. Childish and rather silly to anyone who would be watching, but a bit silly fun would never hurt anyone. I stand up with a heave, my hands quickly moving out in front of me to warn me of any obstacles. Okay, now what? Now touch me. If you say so, now then. I slowly make my way forwards towards the sound of Lily's voice. My walking speed could barely even be called a shuffle, the entire experience feeling alien even though I don't want to risk inadvertently tripping over anything, such as her table or her haphazard piles of books. Something soft yet solid brushes against my left leg. Further inspection reveals it to be Lily's bed. I move onwards, finding myself thankful that Lily's room is so neat and tidy. Even the piles of books she has are generally kept close to the wall. well out of harm's way. The hard wall pressing against my outstretched hand makes me furrow my brow in frustration. Lily, where are you? What are you doing over there? I'm over here. Lily's voice comes from the other side of the room, far from where it was before, even to my untrained ears. If she's going out of her way to avoid me reaching her, then is this just a game to her? Of course it is. Compared to a life where even the concept of sight is an abstract one, a few minutes in a blindfold are nothing. Guess she's made her point. She's more than capable of navigating her room and further. Seeing how independent she is even compared to many others in Yamaku. Well, even if this is just a game, I may as well play it wholeheartedly. With a pace much quicker than before, I move towards the source of her voice, deftly sidestepping the table in the center of her room thanks to remembering its position. I've got you now. She gives an impish giggle, one just long enough to work out that she's passing just beside me. I quickly turn to face the new The table wasn't there before. Ow. I slowly sit up next to the table, raising my blindfold as I rub my aching head. He hit his head on the table? I give an irritated kick to the table. He must have tripped. Irritated kick to the table that's sitting just in front of where I fell. Utterly pointless. The thing deserved it. Is how? Lily's standing just to my side, obviously unsure of what befallen me. Sorry, I kind of fell over. Are you hurt? My head hurts, but I think I'm okay. The table just moved in order to trip me over. She giggles as she walks over and takes a seat beside me, her hand resting on my own. I suppose that's the end of that, then? I think so. But I also think I get the point, though I do wish it hadn't involved such a headache. Lily sounded almost suddenly looks blank. Point? And I returned to an extraordinarily flat look. That was just for fun? I just thought it might ease you up a little about the subject. You always seem so tiptoe around it, after all. In regards to teaching, sight isn't that important. There are plenty of classes taught by entirely blind teachers, and more enough resources for me to learn the subject. It's as simple as that, really. I slump my shoulders and give a snort of amusement. Yeah, I understand. I guess we'll both just have to work hard to reach our goals, then. What is it? With little hesitation, Lily pushes forward her chin and closes her eyes in an unmistakable gesture. Is this going to be the kiss picture? They just keep putting her in pajamas so they could keep reusing the same picture. I accept gladly, our lips touching. As they do, I suddenly feel her hand snaking up my chest from underneath my shirt. The feeling of her hand against my bare skin is enough to make my heart suddenly accelerate. So she's in that kind of mood again? Well, I'm hardly one to complain. She does genuinely like this, and even with all my medications, my libido is thankfully intact. I lean in for the kiss further, holding her hand tightly as I feel it tracing the contours of my chest. Eventually, we break off from one another, the room silent, but for our breathing. Hey, Hisao. Yeah? I don't suppose you could wear the blindfold again. Oh, shit. Her tentative suggestion takes me by surprise. I was gonna bring this up, but I was like, we've already had 2 scenes. They're not gonna do a third one. I suppose she wants me to introduce me to sex through her eyes as well, or just wants to find out what I'll be like during the act while hampered by the blindfold. With a measure of unease tempered by curiosity, I do as she says and lower the blindfold over my eyes. The world becomes dark once again. I reflexively tense as I feel Lily's hand gently brush the side of my face, entirely unable to anticipate her touch. I really need to get more used to contact like this. Even after the weeks we've been going out, this isn't natural for me as it is for her. Silence? Hey, Lily. Shh. I obediently follow her instruction and quietly listen, trying to make out something, anything that's happening around me. Compared to before, when I was chasing Lily, the need to carefully navigate the room's obstacles are now gone. I can take my time and concentrate much harder on listening. It takes a while, but I eventually pick out the soft sound of her breathing in my otherwise dead silent room. In, out, in, out. Measuring it against my own breathing, I realize it's definitely deeper than normal, especially for her. Another sound makes its way to my ears that I can't identify immediately, and I don't think I've heard it before, but my heart skips a beat as I realize the source, my hand almost reflexively reaching out towards it. Her face feels softer than usual under my touch, her head just barely turning in acknowledgement towards the fingers on her cheek. Hisao. I gulp and take a moment to try to fully calm down. I need all the concentration I can muster while I'm like this in order to fully take in my surroundings. After a few deep breaths, I think I managed to collect myself. With a touch so light that it wouldn't disturb a feather, I start to move my hand down her body. I could feel myself losing focus again, thanks to those thin silken pajamas of hers resting so perfectly over the curves of her body. If she's like this, then that means she has to be sitting against her bed, facing me now, to continue. All this... Alright, why did I say all this? Alright, this must be her lip. Her hip. if I move just slowly downwards. Lily's breath catches over as my hand comes over hers, tentatively following her fingers between her legs, losing them as they go underneath her underwear. Just the slightest moisture touches my fingertips, but it's enough to easily work out what she's doing. My mind suddenly fills with visions of what she must be like in front of me right now. I never even imagined her doing this before. Being unable to see her doing the act only enhances the mood. I work the blindfold upwards, brushing out... She said keep it on, bro. Brushing out of my eyes a couple of hairs that were stuck to the ribbon before. For a period of time, I can only guess at... My mind goes completely blank. All I can do is stare at my newly freed eyes, taking everything in front of them. Damn. I need to wait for the thing because the sensors I use are me. I don't have them tracking, so I kind of want to wait for the thing to stop so I know where to put it. Just as I'd worked out, Lily sits in front of me, with one hand on the ground to steady herself and the other fingers lightly brushing between her legs, hidden by her dark blue underwear. I think the most erotic sight I've ever seen. Once again, I reach out and brush her hair from her face, her chin tilting outwards as she fills her pleasure-wrapped body with another breath of air. Lily. Lily looks oddly cute as she smiles at my calling her name. It always seems like at moments when she's least attentive, when she lets her most interesting emotions slip out. We're not going to talk about the angry spat. Whatever. It's not losing enough. It's not long before she works her fingers over herself faster than before. Her excitement evidently rising, the scent of her sweat in the air only echoing that fact. I sit in front of her. It's hardly as if my own arousal's holding still. It's taking every fiber of my being to let her continue by herself instead of pushing myself on top of her. Oh, there it is. It's strange. I initially found her clouded blue eyes to be distracting, almost disturbing by their lack of focus. That bothers me far less than it used to now. My attention refocuses on her as she lets out a whimper, her breath coming much faster than before, and her hips suddenly rocking. Subtly. No sooner do I realize how close to the edge Lily's become that her breath catches. Her eyes clasp shut as every muscle in her body seems to contract, as she unmistakably reaches her climax. For only a scant few seconds she tightens, huddled in ecstasy before her body relaxes and a long drained sigh comes from her hips. I have no idea what to say. Silence reigns while I simply watch her. Her hair hanging over her face as she sits exhausted. How? When she reaches to only brush my face, urges to take complete control of my body without so much as a second thought I push myself over her frame. It's an unusual feeling being like this. I feel oddly powerful, holding myself above her blank face, as though for the first time since the accident so long ago I feel physically strong. Lily, I want you. To my surprise, she smiles weakly before reaching upwards to feel the side of my face. It's almost a cheeky expression, of the kind which she usually gives only after getting something out of me. You wanted me to do this? She holds her smile and gives a silent nod. I guess it was an effective way to make me take the initiative for once. Does he put the blindfold back on? Surprise. She gives the ribbon still around my head a sharp tug downwards. Once again, I've lost complete blackness. I told you to keep it on, didn't I? The teasing edge to Lily's voice punctuated by her breathing. She never seems to lose her ability to take control of a situation. But this one time. Sal, what are you? I slide my hands underneath her soft silks and skin pressing into my hands as I gently raise her body with a measure of difficulty. While I wouldn't describe her as heavy, her height makes her more than a handful to try and lift. We're doing it on the wall, bro? That'd be crazy. It'd only take a couple of carefully placed steps to feel the edge of her bed against my legs and lowering of Lily onto the sheets. I'm boring as shit, bro. Just as gentle as when I raised her. Your bed will be more comfortable than the floor, right? Always the gentleman, aren't you? I quickly run my hands down Lily's long, shapely legs, their allure far from diminished without the luxury of sight, and pull her pajama shorts and underwear from her ankle. I have no idea where those just went. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. There'll be somewhere. With a minimum of fuss, I shuffle down my own pajama trousers and underwear, positioning myself between her legs, or at least where I think is between her legs. It's actually like her armpit, or like her armpit of her leg, right the knee. With one hand on her bed to steady myself, my right moves tentatively downwards. Whoops, my first contact with her is my palm clumsily meeting the front of her nose. She giggles a little before turning her head sideways. Taking my cue, I gently cradle her cheek and use my thumb to feel the contours of her face, as she so often does with me. This would be a lot easier as if she wasn't moving her face into my hand, but the feeling of her nuzzling into it is nice. I swallow to try and steady myself, take my other hand from the bed and use it to guide myself into her. As soon as I feel her warmth around me, I quickly realize just how turned on I am. With my sight gone, I'm free to concentrate far more on my other senses, including tactile feeling. The entire experience feels more vivid and more intense than it's been before. I slowly start to move my hips back and forth, my heart beating wildly in excitement. I feel Lily's eyes clenching shut, the movement of her cheek under my thumb, reminding me of the gentle hold I have on the side of her face. It's hard to stop myself from being completely overwhelmed. It's hard to think that this is what sex is usually like for her, experienced through every sense but the one I hold dearest. From her cheek to her neck, I begin to slide my hand downwards to take in the feeling of her body, the contours of her collarbone, the light dew resting on her skin. My sense of smell is stimulated by the scent of her sweat and mine hanging in the air. Even the ambient smell, noticeably different from that of my own room, adds to the feeling. When I move my hand around her supple breast, her soft mewling feels my ears, along with the sound of our act. The skin under my hand moves back and forth with each thrust, and my grip on it tightening as my lust and nearing for the near naked body of Lily for before me grows. I can even feel her small nipple against my palm. My hand slides further and my fingers pluck it through the thin silk of her pajama top. Her whimpering sound turns to a moan as she fills with the same pleasure as I. I can feel my heart beating loudly in my chest and her own beating underneath my hand. I can feel her hands clasp my wrists, then grip suddenly surprisingly tight as her chest rises in overwhelming pleasure. More. I want more. Whoa. I feel my chest tightening as I rock back and forth frantically, both of us entirely taken in with ourselves. Nothing that unusual. I just need to take deeper breaths to steady myself. The feeling is just normal. No, it's not. No, it's not. My guy. Ugh. This isn't. I can't. The pain is too much. Ooh. I stumble backwards from Lily with unseemingly haste, clumsily hitting the back of my foot against the table, falling to the ground with an unceremonious crash. Breathing wildly, I frantically scrape at the ribbon over my eyes and I lay on my back. I have to get this off. I have to get this off. Whoa. For a moment, everything goes blank. At the rush of the newfound light assaults my eyes, my breathing slows from the brink of hyperventilation. Seconds pass, and I carefully measure out the rhythm of my heartbeats with every ounce of concentration I can muster. My heart is normal. It's back to normal. My body feels utterly bizarre as I lay dazed on the floor looking at the ceiling. The adrenaline from before is still pouring through my veins, but my mind is completely exhausted. I prop myself up as I hear Lily getting off the bed and coming towards me. Isao, are you okay? Isao? I'm fine, Lily. I'm fine. She gives a sigh of relief, her worried expression collapsing. Her face afterward is the very last I'd ever want to see from her. It's a face of I detested when I first saw my parents in the hospital all those months ago. Pity. Lily pities me. Are we gonna fall asleep right there on the floor? I just close my eyes and turn away, powerless. I feel like throwing up. I can hear the sound of Lily moving away and quickly attending to herself, the ruffling of her clothing being pulled back after a moment of searching just barely audible. Sorry. She slowly shakes her head as she finishes buttoning up her top. Her kind smile looks so fragile, so delicate, it makes my heart sink. Approaching carefully, she feels out the edge of the low table before taking a seat next to me, putting her arms around my chest. I'm sorry, Isao. I shouldn't have pushed my desires onto you. You don't need to apologize. I'd normally be fine. You've seen that much before. I guess I shouldn't have tried to push myself so far. My eyelids feel heavy. Calmly sitting next to her like this, probably letting the adrenaline work itself out onto my system and letting my mind relax. So that's why you never took the lead? Yeah, I guess it's a good thing you like to, huh? The joke seems to lighten her expression a little, a fact that helps let me feel less unease about my unreliable self. Lily's head comes to rest on my shoulders as I struggle to keep my eyes open. With more difficulty after each blink, I feel completely drained. It's okay, Isao. It's all okay. No sooner does she say this than a small, quiet tune escapes her lips. Entirely too tired to think, all I can do is listen to her soft humming. It's a soft, almost melancholic tune. It sounds familiar, but the more I try to remember its origin, the less I seem able to concentrate. The feeling and scent of her head gently resting on my shoulder and her warm body against my side are soothing. The soft humming of her voice, too, relaxes my mind as much as her warmth relaxes my muscles. This singular moment, after all this fracas, I don't know. It makes me realize just how exhausted I've become. I can feel my eyelids slowly becoming heavier and heavier. Even with the chaos of before, I wish this moment would last forever. Lily and I together, sharing a single solitary occasion together, just as we used to. But if that's the case, then why does she feel further than she's ever felt before? Something's going on, and I don't know what it is, but it's scary.